All right, doing this again, the Homeric Rhapsody thing. This is probably going to be a short one because I gotta be somewhere, but let's give it a shot. Once again, that I'm not necessarily trying to recreate the Iliad word for word. I'm also not necessarily trying to create an entirely new story. I'm just, practicing my ability, or trying to gain the ability in the first place, of doing this oral storytelling tradition that has been going on since ancient Greece, but at least in American and European, a lot of European circles, is kind of like dying out. So, giving it a shot. Let's see what I come up with. Sing, O goddess, of that doomed assembly in which the great runner Achilles confronted the high king Agamemnon, from which all the Achaeans' troubles were to spring, from which many fateful events would have their fulfillment, though none knew it at the time. Agamemnon had been speaking when Chryses approached, asking for his daughter, and Agamemnon refused. Apollo had shot his plague arrows towards the camp, and the men for 9 days were dying left and right. Achilles called an assembly of the men, and here we find our heroes locked in this assembly. The seer Calchas had not wanted to offer his services. He knew what wrath would be upon him. Yet Achilles bade him speak, and he, the great runner, Peleus' son, would protect him from any danger. Thus Calchas spake. It is as many of ye have thought. Apollo shoots his plague arrows at the camp without cease. He be angered for the cruel mistreatment of Chryses, his father, and yea, to appease him, we must return the girl with honors and with no ransom asked. All the men were thrilled at this. They were glad to have such a definitive answer. Yet Agamemnon once again had his blood boiling beneath his skin. How dare you, you prophet! Every time you say any sort of prophecy, it always be to my ruin. Never have I heard a good word come from your mouth. And now you ask me to give back the girl who I had won, who my might of my army had brought me, and who had been the cause of this entire dishonor to me. Aye, if it be something the Achaeans want, if it be for the men, if it be for the good of my entire army, then so be it. I will return her. The men pricked up at this. All seemed to hope that there would be a good outcome. However, Agamemnon had not been finished. However, I cannot be the only one of the Achaean host, of all the lesser captains and lords. I, the greatest Onyx of the Achaeans and Danaans, would be left without a prize. Nay, we must find a new prize for me to take. Achilles spoke up at this. He had heard enough, and he had been angered that Agamemnon had been the cause of this trouble in the first place, to then be asking for a recompense. You king, where do you think we keep all of these prizes that you speak of? We've already sacked the cities. We've already divided up the goods and the women and the loot. Where do you think we keep a store of extra prizes? Nay, it would not be right to take one from somebody, someone who had already been apportioned a prize. Yea, a god intervenes to take yours. However, that would be cruel dishonor to do to your own men, taking someone's prize as such. Agamemnon did not want to hear any more. Anyone who had spoken up would have incurred his wrath. But the great runner Achilles had always pricked up his ire in a special. Peleus' son, I am the king of the Danaans. If I choose to take a prize from someone who had already been apportioned her, I will do so. It is not for you to speak up in place of kings, or for that matter to call assemblies without my leave, as you have done here. I spake not for that because I wanted to see how I could help my men. And now I'm told that not only must I give up my own prize, I must not take another one. I must be left wanting. Nay, Achilles, we will first deal with what needs to be done. We will send the girl to Chryses' isle with offerings to the god, and we will make sacrifice. No ransom required. And later we will talk of the prize that I will take in her place. It may come from any of the lords of the Achaeans. It could come from Odysseus. It could come from Ajax. It could even come from you, Achilles. But that is another matter for another time. Achilles had heard enough of this once again. How dare you, you king, you cannibal king, eating of your own men's stock? We have fought hard. I have been in the front of every battle. I have been valiant, and I must say that if I look to left or right when I hold up my shield or when I throw my spear, I've never seen you among me in the front lines. Yet you always get the choicest of the prizes, the choicest of the women, and you dare to suggest that you will then take my prize. The Trojans have done nothing to me. They do not attack my cattle. They do not raid my lands. The noble Phthia is far from the lands of Troy. I came here to help you, you dog-hearted king, and your brother to get his woman back. And yet you deign to take one of our women in return. See you not the irony in this? Nay, if that be your thought, then I will not stay among the Achaeans. I will take my Myrmidons and the best of the Danaan force, and we will head back to fertile Phthia, where I will be reverenced and I will gain my due. And thus began that dreadful conversation, that dreadful assembly, in which the Achaeans all were to pay a dear, dear price. All right. It was interesting. I ended up, sort of like writing a previously on thing at the opening, which I don't know that I love the way I approached it, but it's an interesting idea. I had some fun little motivational ideas about why Achilles or Agamemnon were, kind of like angered or upset, other than the usual kind of like hard-headedness that's mostly just implied in the story. I got to do a little bit more of like a meaty dialogue scene, which we haven't had that much of late, in the opening parts yet. Not bad overall. Especially in the opening part, you could hear that I was really struggling to kind of like catch the rhythm, and I was really doing it in a halting way. But that I guess it's just because the nature of doing like a previously on type thing is not really Homeric in general. So it's hard to kind of inject that. And also, you know, I was just straying from the story, and that's not to say that I should never do that, but it's just, you know, me being inexperienced at this whole process in general, it was probably harder for me to come up with phrasing on the spot. All right, you know, we're doing it every day. I can't necessarily say that I am happy with the quality of the writing or of the story that I told, but I can say that I'm happy with the fact that I did it again and I'm continuing to do it. That's all you can really ask for. Again, the point of all this is that I'm attempting to sort of catch the ring of Homer's music by upholding the kind of long lost tradition of oral storytelling, in which, you know, hence the blindfold, I'm not looking at any notes, I'm not taking any notes, I'm not, you know, writing anything down. I'm just every single day telling stories from the Iliad and, you know, using my knowledge, as Homer would have had as well, knowledge of what came before, which is to say that I've read the Iliad many, many times in many different translations, and, you know, I'm just stitching together in my head whatever stories come to mind or any new stuff that I think of. And this is all in service of the game project that I'm working on, which anybody who's been looking at my channel will recognize. I've been working on it for like a year and a half now, which is a turn-based RPG based on the Iliad. It's about single combat between heroes, and there's a lot of written content that I'm planning for the larger version of it. So before it comes time to write all that stuff, I'm sort of like practicing to try and strengthen that, you know, aspect of my writing. All right, so I guess, you know, I'll keep going. And again, I'm happy, not necessarily happy with the quality of the story yet, but I'm at least happy that I'm still doing it. So that's something.